When I discovered that my wife had cheated on me twice and was going to do it again, I was absolutely devastated. I read about all the emotions that overwhelm a person when they realize that the marriage they thought they had was solid and secure had turned into a sham. Emotions overwhelmed me too, like Hurricane Katrina flooded New Orleans. My dam burst and the waters rushed in and swallowed up everything I was and everything that was my wife. Yes, I almost cried over it. When the flood of emotions subsided, there was nothing recognizable left in my marriage. Everything was gone. The trust was gone. The respect was gone. Admiration was gone. Caring was gone. Sexual attraction gone. Love is gone. Have you seen pictures of the aftermath of the hurricane? There's no place you can recognize where you can come and begin to rebuild the way it was. It's just devastation, and it's so overwhelming that you give up and walk away. That's what I would want to do with my marriage. I would have given up and walked away. There was nothing there worth trying to save. My wife took our life and twisted it around until everything was just a pile of unrecognizable garbage. It was all over. Susie and I had a fight. It wasn't an unusual quarrel. We had them from time to time like most married couples, but this one ended very ugly. Susie tried to talk me into remodeling our living room. She said the furniture was outdated. She was tired of it and wanted to redecorate the room and change the furnishings. I explained as clearly as I could that the furniture wasn't old. It was only 2 years old. It cost a lot of money, and I wasn't going to spend that much money on new furniture. She kept telling me that she was sick of it and wanted something new. I probably made a mistake and escalated the argument when I said, "I guess you're bored with me too, huh? You want to just go and sleep with someone else because you're sick of me? Why can't you just be happy with what you have?" She lashed out wryly in response. "Well, maybe I should go and cheat on you. Then maybe you'd realize what you had and what you could lose." Of course, I didn't let that go unchallenged either and yelled out, "Well, you decide what you want out of life, Susie, and just pursue it. But don't expect me to be here waiting for you when you get back." Then she hit a nerve with me when she said, "I probably should have married Phil instead of you. Maybe he wouldn't have been a cheap bastard like you." That went over like a red rag on a bull. I literally yelled at her, "Fuck you, go sleep with him. I never want to hear his name mentioned again, and you're not buying new furniture no matter what you do or say. End of discussion." I jumped out of the house and drove to the club for a couple beers. I was furious and I needed time to cool down before I talked to her again. Phil had always been my biggest rival. He was the golden boy in our community. Everything he touched went in his favor, with one exception. He touched my wife years ago, but she was in love and married me, not him. They met a few times during the brief period when she and I were separated. He had his eye on her and almost succeeded, but not completely. She did marry me. I was busting my ass at my job and making a very respectable living. In fact, more than respectable. Phil was just looking at a project and it was starting to make him money. I had been in business for many years, and my reputation had grown steadily through hard work and honesty. But everyone around me just assumed that Phil was an authority, a trustworthy person. He never had to prove anything about himself. Was I jealous of his successful life? No, I wasn't jealous of his business status. I was raised to work hard, be honest and reliable, and I would never be jealous of someone else's success. But I was a little sensitive, okay? Jealous of him when it came to Susie. I'll always remember that she dated him, that he touched her. It was about 2 hours later, just about 9 p.m., that my cell phone rang. I looked at the number. It was my home phone. I decided to send the call to voicemail rather than talk to my wife at this point because I was still pretty wound up. And on top of that, I had a few beers under my belt and thought I might just say something nasty that I would regret later. A while later, I listened to her message. "Larry, I called to tell you I'm sorry for what I said earlier. I realized it still wasn't enough to return my call because you had to see it was me calling. Since you're not coming home anytime soon, I think I'll just go out on my own for a while. I'll see you later." It really wasn't enough. I was just starting to come to my senses after our fight, but now I was angry again. I grabbed myself another beer and drained it in a couple minutes, then went looking for her. I drove around every bar parking lot in town and didn't see her car. I finally thought that maybe she had left with someone she knew, so I drove to her best friend Patty's house, and sure enough, her car was parked out front. I walked up to the front door and knocked. After about a minute, Dave, Patty's husband, came to the door and asked me, "How are you doing, Larry? I heard you and Susie had a little fight today. They're not here. They decided to go out to the bars a little tonight." "Well, Dave, I didn't see Susie's car at the bars, so I thought maybe she was here with Patty. Could you tell me what kind of car your wife drives so I can go and look for them?" "She has an excursion tonight. I think they were going to start at Bachelor's and eventually come back here," he added. I got out and drove straight to Bachelor's, and sure enough, Patty's excursion was in the parking lot. I thought about going straight in and coming face to face with Susie, but I was still a little high from the beer I'd had and thought it might be best if I just sat in the car briefly and sobered up before we had another drink. A few minutes after 11 p.m., they came out, got into Patty's car, and drove out of the parking lot. I followed them at a safe distance, and just as Dave had said, they pulled up to the downhill bar and went inside. I sat in the parking lot again for a while, just watching what was going on. I figured it wouldn't be long before they headed to the next place, and I wasn't wrong. At exactly 12:30, they drove to what I assumed would be the next and last stop before returning. It was the pub in the hotel, and when midnight came, Patty walked out of the hotel, got into her car, and drove off. What the hell is this? I asked myself. How wrong was Susie going to act by staying here? Was she going to do something stupid? I knew I had to find out. I pulled my team baseball cap and t-shirt out of the trunk and put them on as some sort of disguise. Now I wasn't quite sober yet, so my disguise was far from perfect. You see, the jersey had my name on it. However, I didn't think anyone would pay that much attention to it, so I knew it was better than no disguise at all. A few minutes later, I snuck into the pub and found a secluded spot from where I could watch what was going on. That's when I saw Susie with Phil. Yes, she was with Phil. They were sitting at a table against the back wall of the bar as far away from the entrance as they could get. I noticed that there was an empty booth right behind Susie, so I moved in with all the caution I could muster. I needn't have worried, though. The two of them were so absorbed in their conversation that they wouldn't have noticed the water buffalo climbing into that stall. From where I was sitting, I could hear their entire conversation, except for a couple times when he must have leaned forward to kiss her and whispered something. "Thanks for coming, Phil. I didn't want to keep Patty up all night," she said. "No problem," Phil replied. "You know I love it when you and Larry fight. 7 years ago, you two broke up, and I've had a lot of fun with you for a while, and twice more since you've been married. I'm perfectly happy to give you another night of revenge tonight, too. I wish you two would fight more often than you do." "Well," she said, "you know I love him to death, but when he pisses me off like he did tonight, I can't help it. I need a revenge fuck just so he won't be the winner." As I listened to this conversation, the realization that she had cheated on me twice in the last 6 years of our marriage and was planning to do it again tonight put me in the state I was in when I started telling this story. She could have said all she wanted about how she loved me to death, but her actions proved otherwise. She fucked Phil to get even with me, to keep me from winning, as she put it. That's not love. It's a selfish, uncaring entity, and it caused all the changes I mentioned. Right or wrong, this conversation has destroyed me and my love. Don't tell me I'm stupid because I won't listen. It is what it is, and I knew I didn't love her anymore. Oh, I almost cried over such a loss, but it was already over. I waited for a while, wondering how long it would be before they headed for the room, and pretty soon I heard him say, "So, Susie, are you ready?" I could almost see the smirk on her face. I knew she'd be there because I'd heard the words she'd said to him, and she always smirked when she said them. Luckily for them, They got up and headed for the elevators. I was ready to kill by now. Maybe I was lucky, because I think I might have actually done some serious damage to their health. A short while later, I followed them into the lobby. I couldn't tell what floor they were staying on, so I walked up to the porter and asked to call Phil Major's room. The phone rang 3 times before he picked it up, and I asked in a slurred voice, "Is this room 312? He replied, "No, it's not 312. Why the hell are you calling that number at this hour?" And hung up. I asked them to call his number again, and when he picked up, I said, "Well, I thought it was 312. Tell me, are you trying to trick me because it's 312, isn't it?" "You stupid drunken scumbag, this isn't number 312. It's number 422, and if you call here again, I'll have the manager call the police." He tossed the phone receiver. "Anyway, who's calling me a dumb bastard now? I think the dumb bastard is the guy who just gave an angry and dangerous husband the number of the room where he's going to sleep with his wife. Let's take a vote. Who's the dumb bastard?" I took the elevator to the 4th floor and walked down the hallway to room 422. I listened at the door until I could make out that their action was in full swing, and then I knocked on the door. I heard him yell out, "Well, what the fuck?" And I actually took great pleasure in it, because I knew I was about to destroy his party. I stepped away from the peephole so he couldn't see. And when he opened the door, I hit it with such force that the security chain snapped off the door jamb and the door swung open. There on the bed lay my beautiful cheating wife, naked as the day she was born. As I burst into the room, she screamed and her face went completely white. I'm surprised she didn't pass out. "Oh God, no! Oh God! Oh God! Oh God, no!" Phil finally recovered from the shock of breaking into the room and yelled at me, "Larry, get your ass out of my room. I'm going to call security. Remember what I said about stupid adultery? Well, I hit him in one well-placed blow to the solar plexus and he went down. Didn't move at all for a few minutes. I didn't have any more trouble with him. Susie, you lying cheater. I know all about it. I heard you at the bar and I know everything. Don't bother coming home tonight. That would be a big mistake on your part." "Oh, God, no, Larry. Let me come home. I can explain. It means nothing to me. I'm in love with you." "Oh, God, no." "You heard me. Don't make the second biggest mistake of your life and come home. It's not going to turn out well for you. And yes, you can take that as a threat." I turned and walked out the door. I was actually surprised that I could be as calm as I was right now. I'd wanted to kill them both minutes earlier, but throwing just one punch at the stupid bastard showed incredible control on my part. I know I'd been pretty rough on her verbally, but it could have been a lot worse. Once I got to my car, I got in it and just sat there for a while, trying to calm down even more. I also decided that I would wait a few minutes just to see if the police would show up or if Susie would leave with Phil. After about 15 minutes, Phil came out of the hotel, got in his car, and drove off. A few minutes after he left, Patty showed up again and Susie came out and got in her car. I was at least glad they didn't stay to have sex in the hotel room after I left. Not that the damage wasn't already done, but it would have added insult to injury, or as they say, added fuel to the fire. That gave me an idea. I went home and went to bed. I don't even know what time the phone rang and the caller ID showed it was Patty. "Larry, I know you're upset about Susie and don't want her to come home, but I wanted to call you and tell you that she's staying with Dave and me so you don't have to worry about her." "Patty, I wasn't going to worry about her anymore. I don't care about her anymore. You didn't have to wake me up. By the way, what time is it?" "It's 3 o'clock in the morning, Larry, and you can't tell me you don't care. I know you love Susie and she loves you. She's here and she's crying her eyes out because of how stupid she was tonight and she wants you to forgive her." "Patty, she can't come home. Ask her if her stupidity goes back to those other 2 times she slept with Phil before tonight." "Oh, God, no," Patty said after I hung up. I guess she didn't know about the other time Susie had cheated on me with that asshole. I was lucky in that I don't get bad hangovers, and besides, I quit drinking pretty early in the evening, so even though I was very tired, I was up and about by 8 o'clock in the morning. By 10 o'clock, I was ready for a confrontation with Susie. I called Patty at home and told her that Susie could come home if she wanted to. I was standing in the driveway when she pulled up a few minutes later. Dave and Patty followed her to our house. I'm sure they were there to make sure I didn't physically harm her in any way. When Susie got out of her car, her eyes were wide open, and she asked, "Larry, what is that pile in our front yard?" "Susie, it's anything that would remind you of me. Everything you've ever given me. Everything I've ever given you. These are all the pictures of our courtship and our 6 years of married life. I can't think of a single thing left in the house that reminds you of me. I even put the old furniture out here so you could go out and buy new furniture like you wanted. And lastly, this." And I held up our wedding picture. I walked over to the end table that was next to my chair and placed the picture on it. I took a few steps back to the driveway and threw a lit match into the trail of gasoline I doused all that stuff with. It caught fire, and the flames quickly ran to the pile of memories of me. It wasn't long before everything was engulfed in flames. It was a hellfire. There wasn't much left but ashes and burnt furniture frames. I looked at my wife, who was clearly in shock, and said, "You win, Susie. I heard you tell Phil that you never wanted me to win. I hope it was all worth it. Our marriage is over. You can have everything else. I don't want anything from this marriage. I just hope I don't remember you either. You'll get the details from my lawyer." A few minutes later, when I heard the sound of approaching sirens from across the street, a police car pulled up, and 2 officers came over to ask what had happened. A couple minutes later, the fire department arrived to put out what was left of the smoldering mass. The gasoline did its job, and the pile turned to ash and charred rubble in a matter of minutes. "I'm just burning the remnants of the marriage, officers. I apologize for the trouble I caused." Needless to say, they took me into custody. As they escorted me to the patrol car, I looked over at Susie and saw that she was sobbing. I spent a couple days in jail, and they had a psychiatrist evaluate my sanity. Surprisingly, they found that I was sane. Saddened and destroyed, but sane. I think they would have let me out sooner, but they wanted to observe me for a couple days just to be sure. I posted bail and went to get my car from the parking lot outside my office. All the stuff I wanted to keep was in the car. It was mostly my clothes and a few other personal items. I drove to the nearest motel and got a room for a few days until I could find an apartment to rent. A few weeks later, I was completely settled in and started moving on with my life. My trial began, and I pleaded guilty to all charges and was fined $5,000 plus court costs. It was a small price to pay to destroy my broken marriage. Susie contested the divorce and continued to leave me voice messages on my cell phone. She begged me to talk to her, to forgive her because it meant nothing to her, to take her back. I left one message on our home phone when I knew she would be at work. I said, "Susie, you tell me it meant nothing to you, but it meant everything to me. Do you understand? It meant everything to me. Goodbye." I never heard from her again. The divorce did go through, and I gave her everything she wanted. I just wanted to be done with her. Phil's wife got wind of all this, divorced him, and really gave him the cleaners. Apparently, Susie wasn't the only wife Phil consoled when they were fighting with their husbands. A couple weeks after I burst into the hotel room and caught him with his wife, I ran into Phil at the very same bar. I think I must have surprised him because he didn't have time to get up and run away. I leaned on his shoulder as he sat on a bar stool and told him that I was pretty sure that if he hung around town, he was bound to get into some kind of serious accident someday. When his divorce was final, he began liquidating what was left of his holdings, and soon his absence from the city became apparent. Oddly enough, not too many people actually missed him much. Well, actually, I was secretly hoping he would stay in town. Every now and then, I run into Susie on the streets, and each time she tells me how sorry she is and asks if I'll call her to talk. I just nod and walk away, and to this day, I haven't called her, but she keeps asking. Who knows? Maybe someday I will call.